Right. And so, like I was saying, he gives us the examples of trees, and he starts his essay with by comparing the man from the village and the man from the city. And he says, undoubtedly, the man from the city does not know too much. The man about nature, the man from the city is ignorant about the kinds of trees, the names of trees, the names of birds and animals and flowers. But that's a good state to be in, because that means you can find out all about it, right? So that's the best thing. And it's not just the pleasure of finding out about it, but also the pleasure of following nature, following the activities that take place in nature. So for example, the cuckoo bird, he keeps talking about the cuckoo bird a lot. There's this whole thing about the cuckoo, which does not build a nest of its own. So when the bird feels like laying an egg, it goes and very nicely lays its egg in the nest of another bird. Now, this is a known fact, but he says it gives so much pleasure in just waiting and following that bird, and waiting for this to happen. So we don't know when the cuckoo is going to do it, or even if it's not that act, say it's flying between branches or it's flying from tree to tree, that sudden flight, that sudden flash, that sudden movement which it makes, which is so unpredictable, is is a source of joy. So he says, and of course, there could be some naturalist also. Now, naturalist is someone who watches nature very consciously, someone who pursues observing things in nature very actively. So he says, of course, the naturalist, even for the naturalist who may have read books and who is trying to corroborate the facts that he has read in the books, um, perhaps that is how the naturalist seeks his pleasure, that, oh, I've read this in the book, so let me see if this is truly happening. But even if the naturalist has read everything in all the books he could have laid his hands on, still something unpredictable might happen in nature, something which he had not expected. And that unpredictability, that unforeseeability of things, is what makes things so beautiful. So, and he says the problem with us is that we fail to notice or observe most of the things around us. But this problem can actually be a blessing in disguise, because just because we are such bad observers, and just because we don't care to look around us, we don't take notice of elements in nature, birds, animals, flowers, and the fact that they have a life of their own, they have a momentum of their own, they have a way of their own life cycle, they have a way of blooming and wilting, or growing and withering. But we don't know, we humans are so preoccupied with ourselves that we don't take care to take cognizance of all these things that are constantly happening in nature. But that's a good thing, because we can start from today. Since we haven't been exposed to all of this, and we've only been exposed to books, it's a very good place to start, because we are completely ignorant. So, the first part of the argument is where we are in a state of ignorance by virtue of not being very observant, by virtue of not being very alert and attentive. And so, let us make the most of this state of ignorance by actually now becoming actively engaged in viewing or in observing or in witnessing all the wonderful things that are happening in nature. So that's the first part of the argument.